Yeah. Hey guys, all right, just before the show starts, I wanted to let you guys know that my fight against cancel culture is still happening. Please go to the description below. There's a link titled Support My Fight Against Cancel Culture. If you want to help my fight, please consider giving a bit of a donation. All the information's in that link. With that being said, enjoy the show.
Loaded topic.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Funny You Should Say That, a show where we talk about anything and everything. We usually have a panel of comedians, and we talk about anything that's recent or any difficult topics. Sometimes it's related to the industry, and sometimes it's not. Tonight we are continuing our discussion about the dark side of comedy. And this is Vanner was telling me just as we went off air, or sorry, just as we were going on air, that I look nervous. I am quite nervous. I think this is a delicate and sensitive topic for a lot of people, and if I may, I want to just tell people why this is coming up. And the reason is because of the recent allegations against Tall Ass Mo. For those of you who don't know, I will leave a link to some of these articles that I have in front of me in the description below after the show. And he's a former comedian because he's retired, who's been accused of raping a model, and the model continues to speak out, and obviously he tries to plead innocence. It's a difficult case, this one, and we'll get into it a bit later. But I have a guest with us. We have a guest. Sophie Joans is with us today. And she's here to create some awareness and speak out, if I can put it that way. And I don't want to speak on her behalf. So, Sophie, I'm going to let you take this one.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me. I'm glad that this is something that's being spoken about. I think, as the article highlights, sexual harassment is something that's complicated and nuanced, with two sides to the story. And I think my experience is in the comedy industry, where I have experienced varying degrees of harassment. And I'm glad that we're talking about it, and we should.
Would you mind telling us some of the experiences? I know it's a very sensitive topic.
But it's not. To be honest, the only physical, a lot of it is comments. Like, I would say inappropriate, because it's like I'm on a lineup and the MC who's booked me will be like, hey, let's have a drink afterwards. And then I'll be like, no, and then I won't get booked again. But the most hectic thing that I've experienced, because I felt it was a physical thing, was quite honestly at your comedy competition, Joe. We stood on the stage for a photograph, and I felt your hand on my butt.
Hand.
And I think it's your hand, Joe. Yeah. And I remember feeling in that moment, my mom was in the front row, and I made eye contact with her, and I was in the finals. We didn't know who was going to win yet. What I felt in that moment was like, if I step forward and I'm like, excuse me, I can feel your hand on my ass, that one, it could jeopardize my chances of winning. Like, there was no way I was going to win if that's what happened. And I said that. Two, I'm in front of a whole audience of people I don't know. Are they going to say, like, what the fuck? Like, no, he's not. Are you going to say, no, I'm not? Were you even doing it consciously? That is what I'm interested to talk about today. And I'm so glad. It's ironic you invited me, but I'm glad that we're talking about this now.
Cool. Well, I gotta be honest, Sophie. I wasn't touching your bum. I never do that. Maybe someone else was. Was it just you and I on stage?
The four winners were standing on stage, and you were standing next to me. And it wasn't like a grab of the ass. It was like subtle at the top of my bum, lower back. Sure, I've thought about this from your point of view many times. You obviously didn't feel it, but like, that's what I felt.
Well,
I think I think this is a great starting point to say that sexual harassment often isn't evil men deliberately being malicious. I think it's a systemic power dynamic in the world that lots of things come into play: age, status, power in the, like, being a runner of the competition versus being an entrant. There's so many things that give people platform and give people power and then take it away from other people. And I think that's what happens, and that's why sexual harassment happens, because it's subtle.
Yeah.
And it's nuanced.
Well, first, let me also say this. I'm sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. Definitely, I usually am very careful when it comes to that stuff. I thought if it was a group photo, usually my hands are up top or like around the waist or whatever, like within a reasonable area. Um, so I'm very, very sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. It's definitely not my intention. Like I said, I try and be as respectful as possible. So I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. That's all I think we need to do to heal as a world in this area. Is just people just being sorry. And thanks for just hearing that was my experience.
No worries. And I think that you mentioned some other aspects of it that you know, we discussed this privately as well, like the power concept of some people who are aware that they're powerful and they use their powers for bad. But yeah, let's first hear from Venner. You've been umming and ahming. So I just want to get your opinion.
First of all, I want to say you both, so it's kind of great to come on and say this, on a show. And, Joe, it's, being, having someone say that they felt that you sexually harassed them, it's quite a stressful thing. And I think for many guys, we don't necessarily know when women feel that they're being sexually harassed, or they're being intimidated, or that there's a power imbalance, or that there's anything of the sort, So, and Sophie should say it's an exceptionally nuanced thing, It's, I know Joe is an exceptionally nice guy. Do I think he would ever purposefully, make someone feel uncomfortable? I don't think so. Does it happen by accident? I think more often than we'd like to admit. And I think this is why, as a society, we kind of like learning as we go along, and we kind of like, most guys these days generally tend to just keep a distance, to avoid these situations, because, consent has to be granted explicitly, so and not an implicit thing, so there's this explicit and an implicit thing, so when you are standing in a group photo kind of context, what is permissible, what is not permissible, how close are you supposed to stand, how close you're not supposed to stand, so do you need to define these rules up front before you take the picture? The kind of question comes in, who has the onus of saying, I'm comfortable with this picture, or can we rearrange it? Should Joe have gone and said to everyone, okay, is everyone comfortable with this arrangement? These are the kind of things that I think we need to figure out if we're going to avoid these situations from happening again. So there's a question of intent. So maybe the question to you, Sophie, is, do you believe Joe had an intent to cop a feel? And
yeah.
And if it wasn't an intent, it was, in the moment, things, you stand for a photo, everyone comes together, and you felt uncomfortable. There's no denying that. There's absolutely no denying that. So, but how do we solve that?
Yeah. That's what I'm here to discuss. I think, you asked the question, Vanna. In the moment, I saw the situation as MC cops a feel from Girl in the Skirt. But you're a nice guy, Joe. You're a fun, like, charismatic man. Like, fun, charismatic man sometimes cop feels. Then when you asked me to be on the show, I was like, wait, shit. Maybe he doesn't know. Like, maybe it was a mistake. And then made me think a lot. how complicated this thing is. Because what was the issue there? Is it my fault? Is it your fault? Or is it that we have like a problem with being honest and being straightforward and feeling like we can say things and express without judgment or shame, like being shamed or being gaslit? Like, no, that's not true, but I felt it. Yeah. But yeah.
You need to be able to say no, and sometimes there is a power imbalance. I mean, I'll totally admit it. I mean, I was molested as a kid. I was what grade? What's it? Standard 4. What's that? Grade 6. I think. Older man, friend of the family, seemed, and they made it seem like there was nothing wrong, and there was a clear power imbalance because there was, I was supposed to trust this adult, right? There's an adult man, friend of the family, and I was supposed to trust him, and it happened, and I didn't even realize at the time that I was being molested. So sometimes you as the victim don't know until much later in life, right? That was obviously, not just a feel on the butt, something a little bit more sinister than that. There was no penetration or anything like that, but, bad enough. So I think it comes from a very early age that it's almost parents need to be able to teach kids to say in any moment, any time, if you don't feel comfortable, you need to say, okay, I don't feel right. So either I need to remove myself, or I need to speak up, or say something. That's the first step. In that moment, say something, acknowledge it. And then from that reaction, you immediately be able to tell, is that intent, is it accidental? Is it malicious? Is it somebody that's knowingly doing it? Or is it just an accident? Because I've walked down the aisle in an airplane and accidentally bumped, you bump someone's derriere. It just small spaces, confined spaces. These things happen.
Yeah.
Was it intentional? No. Am I a sex pest? No, not by a long shot. You're in a confined space. Bodies get close and you touch one another. Should I, at any point in time when a man walks past me and brushes against me, does that trigger me now? No, of course not. It's because I'm older. I can stand up for myself. And I don't feel there's no power. But I think in those situations where you feel there's a power imbalance, that's where one needs to immediately speak up.
Yeah, like I would have highly appreciated it if you said something, because I really didn't mean to. Like, I feel terrible that I made you feel that way because I wasn't even aware. I really didn't know. From our private conversation that I try and I don't condone this behavior at all. So, but it's good that you told me, and it's good that we're talking about this because now I'll be even more aware next time there's a group photo, or because again, I don't want, I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, and so maybe I don't think like okay, so like had you said something, I wouldn't, it wouldn't have cost you the gig. It really wouldn't have. I wouldn't have even known. I would have been like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I apologize profusely. Like, I'm sorry, I'll put my hand somewhere else, or I just won't touch you. It's fine. Like, I'm totally behind respecting people's spaces. So let me just say that. I think communication. I don't know if that's a form of solving it, but it's definitely a form of making people aware, because not everybody knows. People have different levels of comfort. So, like, for me, I don't mind if people come and hug me. That's not because I want a cup of feel or anything like that. Some people are just friendly and they want to hug people. I've met a lot of people like that, and I don't mind sometimes, but I don't mind most of the time, right? That's fine. But I know that there's a lot of people out there that refuse. They just don't hug me. I don't want to be touched. I don't want to, I don't want to even shake hands. People have different levels of comfort, and I think that needs to be communicated. And I think that, communication is a form of maybe helping us be more aware of each other. Mikhail,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we've been talking. Maybe you can give us your opinion on this as well.
I'm going to be honest, a lot of it now, everyone has made very valid points and whatnot, so a lot has gone through my head.
A lot of nicotine too, right?
Yeah, no, the nicotine is always the safe. I gave up drinking. Something has to kill me one day at least. I think we can start off firstly. I think, Sophie, thank you for being on. Thank you for your bravery. I spoke to my missus, obviously not the situation, but my missus and I have always had quite a few conversations about this, just in general. And on the one hand, you should definitely be lauded for your bravery, but the sad reality is that women shouldn't be lauded for their bravery. When I say that in a sense of they should be able to speak more openly about this to start off with. This shouldn't be a brave thing. This simply just needs to be a thing that needs to be discussed. So from the one hand, thank you so much, and you should be lauded for your bravery. But once again, we need to get to a point where an individual out of 100 shouldn't be pointed and go, but you are brave. It should be a case of all 100 have gone, but this is a thing, and it needs to be discussed. Joe, on the other hand, on your side, I'm going to be honest, you did handle it well. So kudos there. And
It is honest.
I've known you long enough. I've known you long enough. I know the for a fact you're going to beat yourself up about this. I know for a fact that it wasn't intentional, but I think what you should take from this is you now have an opportunity to educate other comedians about this. Listen, I was in a situation where I was in a group photo, and I have a tendency to put my arm around the comedian next to me, and I wasn't aware of what I was doing. Educate other comedians going, listen, be a bit more aware of your surroundings, whether it's a guy or a woman. Yes, more women are sexually harassed or find themselves in difficult situations than men, but at the end of the day, men also do experience sexual harassment. It is less so, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
It does happen. So much less.
But once again, it does happen. So Joe, I do truly hope that, yes, it was a difficult, uncomfortable situation, but there is a positive to come from it. She spoke out. You apologized. I sincerely believe that she forgives you, and it's not a reflection at all of who you are in general, but you have an opportunity to use this the next time you organize a gig or a comedy thing or just an enclosed conversation with other comedians. Listen, be a bit more aware of your fellow comedians and even just simply fans. How many times at gigs have we had people come to us going, listen, you've had a great show, and you read the situation as, awesome, dude, let's have a hug, and then it's not a hug situation. It's maybe it is just a handshake situation. So I think you need to take it from there. And then, it is a societal problem. We can discuss as much as we want to about the fact that it's a power dynamic. I think all of us here and a lot of people understand that it's a power dynamic, but I think firstly we need to encourage women and in a lesser extent case-wise men. You should speak out about this. You should not feel ashamed about speaking about this because you did nothing wrong. It needs to be more commonplace. If it happens, you speak about it, and you just simply have to. There's no two things about it. We need to be more commonplace. I'm using BLM as a beautiful example of what we've discussed what the far left has done to it. But if we look at BLM as a whole, you have more people discussing police brutality and stuff. That technique needs to be used for sexual harassment as well. Because luckily it is a recipe that you can copy and paste. If we are able to speak about people of certain races or religious views or gender identities, if they have the opportunity to speak out and it can become a movement and we can look at the problems, I think that when it comes to sexual harassment, it needs to be the same. This recipe can work, but there needs to be encouragement, because I've sadly come across people in my life that, to the worst extent, that have been raped, where they feel guilty, they feel ashamed, they feel they've deserved it for some reason, or they were looking for it, and that whole "I'm not looking for it" is a difficult conversation, because you can use the argument, okay, I've walked into a dark alley, I got mugged, I was looking for it. But on the other hand, in a perfect society, I should be able to walk in a dark alley without fearing to be mugged.
Exactly.
If a woman or a man wants to dress in a manner that can be perceived as being promiscuous, they should be able to do so and not feel threatened by it. If a woman wants to dress in a certain manner because it makes her feel confident, or she's purely feeling comfortable enough to show off these positive attributes, whatever they may be, then let her. This is not an invitation for something more. And that goes for men as well. People in general, if you want to dress a certain way because it accents you or compliments you, you should do so without feeling threatened.
Can I just no? This is an interesting, like, what I want to say. It's like a difficult thing, right? Because as you say, you should be able to walk down a dark alley safely, right? You should be able to. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But we know for a fact that there are bad people that do bad things. It's a given. It's an absolute given. I mean, you'd be asinine to think any otherwise, right? Right? We can, as rational adults, we can agree that's a fair statement.
No, it is.
In the same sense, we can categorically state, and this is truer to certain extents for certain cultures versus others. In Singapore, women can pretty much walk really late at night, because they have harsh penalties for severe crimes, right? Our judicial system, our crime system, doesn't take that approach. Our let's call it our continent still has a big problem with the situation where women and children are seen as objects to own as opposed to things to protect. I think we used to come from a place in space where what I say, I make a distinction between good and bad people, because I do believe there are good people and there are bad people, and these are choices that people make. I don't believe people are intrinsically born bad and nobody's intrinsically born good. You kind of shape through your surroundings, your own choices, etc. So now, in saying that we acknowledge that danger is real. Danger is real. What is my responsibility to protect myself? In terms of situational awareness, arming myself, having some form of combat training. It is in a planet of 7+ billion people. These are not irrational concepts, right? Mm-hmm. So now, and this is now something, Sophie, that I'm quite interested in, is like, where does that line, where do you believe that line of responsibility lies?
Yeah, I guess the thought I had when you were saying this is, obviously the immediate danger, and there's the immediate need to protect yourself. But if we're taking all the immediate precautions, then a lot of our energy can just go into protecting ourselves rather than changing the way things are.
Changing the system, yeah.
Yeah, changing the system.
Some people will never change, though. That's also...
Yeah, but I mean, if we had like tons of harsher penalties, or you're like Singapore, if we could work towards getting to that, then yeah.
Yeah, well,
you're still going to get that creepy guy.
There's a fan of ours that is in the chat and says on this, I think it's related to this topic. Queen Wordsmith, thank you, Queen, for tuning in. Also, the criminal justice system in SA protects the perp instead of the victim. From reporting to SAPS, you get victim shamed, and the case is mishandled in the court system. That itself is anti-victim, which is true, which is what we're kind of touching on. The system doesn't really help either, and that is a big problem.
Gender-based violence and child violence in South Africa, for years we were the #1 baby rape country in the world. I mean, let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
We're the number one
Yeah.
baby rape nation. Who the fuck does that?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I'm just like, let's start crucifying motherfuckers left, right, and center. I'm ready.
And
I'm fucking ready.
there's
You know
the
what I mean?
anarchy coming out.
Yeah. But then we also have to get what drives a human being to do that? Who, like, what?
There's a deep philosophical discussion in that, Sophie, and I think that is something we could probably spend. And I think, Joe, it's maybe a good topic we should add. It's like, what drives people to pure evil?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a good friend. Maybe I can convince him to take the sergeant in the Sept, right? Maybe I can convince him to come on and chat. And he said to me, Werner, I've looked in the eyes of pure evil, and don't let anyone tell you that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, somebody that has seen the kind of shit that most of us would have sleepless nights for lifetimes, right? If he says to you, I have looked into the eyes of pure evil and they come across as the nicest people on the planet, okay, that is psychopaths.
Yeah.
And that's like a whole nother level of crazy.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good topic to discuss. We should jot it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will.
But are psychopaths the only people who rape babies psychopaths? I don't think so. Especially if we're the number one, like, how many psychopaths are there, percentage-wise?
Apparently a lot.
Really?
A lot.
Yeah.
Apparently a lot.
Well, for example, if you look at the clinical psychology definition of a sociopath, which, okay, in the past couple of years, it's become, you could use psychopaths or sociopaths, and they've become interchangeable. There was actually a point where there was a differentiation, but let's use common terminology. A sociopath is someone who's deemed as one of the character traits as a person that can, for example, either lie or transgress a certain moral boundary without changing their behavior or seeing it as a moral wrong to start off with. Now, Sophie made the point, now you can bring in the whole nature versus nurture argument, because there are valid arguments for both when it comes to nature versus nurture. But I think, and I'm going to climb here with Werner and take it to a step to the furthest extreme. Do I feel that a person knowingly or unknowingly commits sexual harassment? What I mean by this is a remark that is unfavorable, an action that is making you feel uncomfortable knowingly or unknowingly. Can those people be rehabilitated, and can those people offer something back? For example, in Joe's case, being able to speak to other comedians, go, listen, be a bit more aware of your surroundings, and doing so. Yes. However, I feel there is a point, specifically with men and women, that either rape or are pedophiles, where rehabilitation is no longer a viable option. I am absolutely sorry. You cannot convince me otherwise. There is no way that you can convince me that that person does not have to forfeit his right to life. I'm absolutely sorry. I don't care if you have raped once, which is terrible in its own self, or 30 times, you need to be tied to a tall pole with 6 uniformed people in front of you, and you need to be shot. I don't care if you could possibly rehabilitate it over 25 years. There's no guarantee that I'm going to be able to rehabilitate you over 25 years. Secondly, from the economic point of view, I'd rather spend on a bullet. Okay, let's say the military and police use 5.56 rounds. You're looking at about, let's say, 15 rand.
I'm just saying, rocks are cheap. Bricks are cheap, man, and you can
reuse them. No, let's use it. Standard R4 is 5.56 millimeter. You're looking at about between 12 and 15 rand a round. I'd rather spend 15 rand on a round and sort out the problem here than have to feed you 3 square meals a day over a 25-year time period with the hope that you might not do it again. But you have, apart from murder, you have transgressed one of the most horrible moral lines there are. No, I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense on a social level to keep you alive, and it doesn't make sense on the economic level to keep you alive. So I'm sorry, if you've transgressed those lines, You're going into a ground. And if your family feels terrible that you've died, here's a bunch of flowers and get the fuck over it, because this person has transgressed.
They made their choice.
They made their choice. Because what
Mikhail,
people don't...
Can I?
Okay.
Oh, go for it. Finish up.
Because what people don't understand is, in so many cases, a person that's been raped or molested, they might physically live, but so much of their soul dies afterwards. So you have already committed murder on such a massive psychological level to start off with. There's no guarantee that person, with the best consoling and psychological help, will never ever recover. They will always look over their shoulder. They will always be nervous the moment the sun goes down. They will always be nervous until the sun comes up. So I'm sorry, you get a tarpaulin and a piece of rope and 6 people with hopefully really good aim, and you get a hole in the dirt. I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay for your supposed rehabilitation over 25 years. I'm definitely not going to fucking feed you for that time period either.
Mikhail, if you, in high school, when you were like 17, because we all know how far brain development is like at that age, were at a house party and you were making out with a girl and she got trashed and you were lying in bed making out and she passed out and like you were almost in and you went to hit her with it. Do you still think that's fake?
That's rape.
That's right.
That's rape.
I'm not saying it's not rape. I'm saying, do you still think that guy should have the death penalty?
You still get a bullet and a dirt box. I'm sorry. I'm absolutely sorry.
Look,
you can't. Yes, you can bring now into the nurture argument. Should the parents have raised him? But the thing is, if you are at that age, stupid enough to be pressured into getting stupidly drunk and still going, it's fine, and the next morning not feeling a remorse about it because now we were both drunk.
If you feel like intense remorse, you're like, oh my God, I fucked up. I fucked up so bad.
Look, first of all, if it's underage, they won't classify it legally. It wouldn't be classified as rape. It would be statutory rape, right? And there's a reason why there are legal frameworks for minors versus adults, right? Because an adult has a fully developed brain, and you know what you need, right? And this is why pedophilia is such a big issue as well, right? And that is, where there's a power imbalance, right? And a power imbalance can be defined in many different ways, right? That's why when you go to school, they generally split you up in different age groups, because older kids have a different way of behaving around younger kids, and you kind of need to teach them appropriate behavior amongst one another. Now, with that said, my parents kind of swore death on me if I ever knocked up a girl in school, and they said they will force me to go to work and look after that kid, right? So they made it pretty damn fucking clear that if I fucked up, they were not going to bail me out. They were not going to, and I had to stand by my fuck ups, right? Now that is one of the most valuable things that my parents could ever have taught me, right? Is that you own your fuck ups, right? And you don't walk away from them.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, we have become a society where kids are mollycoddled. Mistakes are, it's okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. You can, no, fuck it. There's a line. There's a solid fucking line in the sand. Ye shall not trespass over that line. And these teachings exist for a reason. In order to teach kids consent, boundaries, appropriate behavior, until your brain is developed where you understand the repercussions of your actions. Now, not to say that, 70, 80 years ago, people were getting married at the age of 18, 17, and having kids at 21. So society does change and norms do change. I mean, I'm 42. I had my first kid like a year ago. So from that perspective, life has changed immensely. But we also we understand consent way better. I mean, I understood consent from day one. I mean, I've got a sister and my mom, and they made fun of, what consent means, and from my friends, also, if you make if you do anything inappropriate, you would beat the living out of them.
Sophie, I'm not blind to the fact that they need to be in the formative years, and that counts up until 18. That there needs to be education, because we can get a lot more right with education in the long run than with a bullet. And I will say that honestly, because if I give you a dirt nap, which you fucking deserve, I've solved the current problem, which needs to be solved, but there's still the possibilities of further. So, do I feel that parents, schools, if you are raised in a home with religion and you're practicing, do I feel that religious institutions should also make more effort to educating? Yes, definitely, because if the education ensures that at 17 and 18 this happens less, or hopefully doesn't happen at all, then yes, let's go that route. But I'm sorry, by the time you're 19, 20, and you've gone through this education in any form or whatever, and you still transgress, then I don't think you should be afforded that right to breathe another breath. But yes, I do think education should be a massive element, because and that's why I mentioned Joe, the lovely opportunity, lovely opportunity, for example, Joe has now unknowingly to tell other comedians, other people in the entertainment industry, be aware of your surroundings and whatnot. Because a lot of times what happens is, and I'm not speaking for all people that do this, they'll make an off-the-cuff remark, and then no reprimand. And I'll do it 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 times. Okay, but if I can get away with this, in most cases subconsciously, okay, but now putting my
push
hand
it a little further.
And in a lot of cases, sadly, the reality is that it is unconsciously. And that is the sad reality. A lot of times it is unconsciously but that boundaries gets pushed and it gets too far. But if you can educate from an early age that, I'm not saying you will, but if you do this little transgression, it could snowball into this transgression, then we are on the road. And at the same time, educate the youth that if you are the victim of this, you should speak out, and you may speak out, and you should not feel guilty. You should not feel you deserve this. You should not question whether you were in the wrong the whole time. So education is a big part of it.
Add to that, if you do speak out, you shouldn't feel all of those things, but you shouldn't fear everyone's going to tell you you're lying.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, why a lot of people don't speak out.
And now we have to get to the law system, unfortunately. Firstly, I feel that there are, not in the majority, but there are cases of people of either gender or sex that have been accused wrongly.
Like false allegations,
False allegations. Now, I still don't feel that having the false allegation argument completely supersedes all the true allegations that there are. That is such a strawman argument. But I feel, firstly, in the South African law system and police system doesn't do this. I feel that at all times, someone's speaking really loud.
Sorry, that's me. I just had to close the door.
All right. Okay. Yes, the concept of innocent until proven guilty. Yes, that is a concept within the law that should remain. However, what the South African law, for example, doesn't do is, firstly, I think both identities should remain completely secret until the final court findings, because the person that has been accused, whether he's guilty or not, the point being is there's a lot of luggage that goes with it, a lot of baggage. If you are accused of sexual assault and you are found guilty, I don't give a shit. Thereafter, you can be lynched for all I care. But that's fine. You transgressed, you've been found guilty. Okay, now we name and shame the living shit out of you. But if you are wrongfully accused, you should be able to walk away knowing, okay, this was just a big fuck up. I can continue with my life without having people question whether I was released on a technicality or not. Then the victim of this, in the majority of cases, sadly, the victim does end up being the victim. The victim needs to have their identity protected for further repercussions. People asking her or him, are you lying? If I keep your if your identity is secret, then luckily the public doesn't really have an opportunity to go, yeah, but did you actually deserve it, or are you lying or whatnot, because they can't actually contact you. You can't really, the public can't knowingly or unknowingly lynch the unknown man, so to speak. And then if the person is found to be guilty, that victim should have the choice to speak out about it and become public. And if the person knowingly wrongfully make an allegation, then obviously that's a different story. Then you can be lynched for all you want because you could have destroyed someone else's life. So that's the first problem in South African judicial system, is that both parties are not kept anonymous until the final finding. The moment you are charged by South African law, you can be made public. The only time that doesn't happen if it is a minor. But if you are 18 in a day, your name's allowed to be public the moment you've been charged. But people don't understand that charge does not equal conviction. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we can discuss as much as we want. The South African procedural system within the police is terrible. It's dockets that go missing, rape kits that aren't implemented in time, rape kits that go missing, blood tests that go missing, DNA that goes missing.
They are woefully under-equipped.
They're woefully under-equipped.
Are woefully under-equipped.
For example, how many times have you read that the person was raped and then the rape kit result come back 4 years later? So this person has been living with the knowledge that this person that caused this has been out there for the past 4 years because you aren't capable enough to actually write a fucking sentence grammatically correct. So there's a massive problem. And then the thing is, and this goes to a step further, in the police, firstly, there aren't enough counselors in the police at the moment to deal with victims. If you want to take a simple example, and this comes back to, for example, why our suicide rate under policemen are so high, or police officers, it's because they've seen so many rape cases and child molestation and murders, and there's no outlet for them. And a lot of times the outlet for them becomes so much further because they know this person committed rape, but the system failed them because the docket went missing or the test was mishandled and whatnot. For example, in the police, this is not from a religious point of view. This is not purely looking at counselors as a whole. There is one Christian chaplain for every 5,000 to 8,000 serving members of the police. That's only the police. Now you want to add victim numbers to that. You're looking 1 to 15 to 25,000 people that possibly have access, because a lot of people that come from the working class don't have access to a high-paid psychiatrist or psychologist or whatnot for counseling. So counseling is also a big problem, and a lot of times, and once again, when I said about the whole death penalty thing, is so many people's souls die and can't be resuscitated because there's not enough of a foundation to help them.
Sorry, I'm just aware that we have limited time. A couple points I think I'd like to make while I'm here. Yes, rape is incredibly traumatic, but I also think the narrative that someone's soul is broken and that they will never recover or be whole again can also be further disempowering. Like, if you're told something and that you are a victim and that like then you can and I know this because that's been happened to me. I've had traumatic experiences that weren't quite rape, and then the rape culture got really toxic, and everyone was like, oh my god, fuck men, trash, they're all gonna hurt you. And I got completely sucked in and I became toxic and angry. And then I realized there's more nuance to the situation. There's always more nuance. Sometimes it's blatant, but most of the time it's very gray, and you can heal from anything. Not everyone gets to, but it doesn't mean you can't. That's
People are
it.
different.
Yeah,
people
everyone's
are
different. It's not
Everyone's got a different poison. Everyone's got a different poison, eh?
It's not a death sentence to your soul, necessarily. But the last thing I just wanted to make, I'm really glad, I'm not sure if it was Van or Mikhail who brought it up, Joe, to say it's an opportunity to educate. And I don't just think it's an opportunity to say, guys, be more aware of spatial stuff in photos. I think the conversation that you and I have had where your first reaction was to apologize. I think that's such a cool example of how these conversations should go. The fact that I come onto your show and I'm like, hey, yo, this is how I felt. And you said, I hear you and I'm sorry. That's the kind of conversations that should happen for us to change. So this is an education.
That's like adulting 101, right? Like adulting 101 says you need to be able to this idea of conversation and communication. Communication isn't just talking, right? It's listening, it's hearing. That is a big key to communication. People think communication is often just about speaking, but it's 90% just hearing the other person, listening to what they have to say, irrespective about how you may feel about that specific thing. Just understand that's how they feel. That's how they is. Let's leave it at that, right? You acknowledge that, and then you can build from it. You can decide, together, how do you move forward? Is it something that's a real big problem? Do you need to chip it away little bits by little bits, or is it just something that I just need to just punch the bag just to get this off my chest and I'll feel better, in like a metaphorical sense. Yeah. So that's something that comes with age. It's you. And I think this is one of the things that schools could arguably do better, is really teach us how to properly communicate. Because I find the schooling system is also ultimately broken, because it's a very, it's that structured, you will do what I say. There is this big power dynamic, right? And I'm not saying kids should have the full run around and do as they please. You need to have structure. You need to have build routines. That is what creates a fully rounded human being. I'm not saying you should just be a robot. Spontaneity, all these things come into play. But the schools don't really teach you how to communicate and interact. And I think one of the big things that we need to focus on is what consent means in the various different scenarios. Right? Because between me and some of my close female friends, like, we have got very close relationships. We don't have a problem hugging and hanging on each other, and it's like, I know they're not going to take offense to that, because we have that type of relationship. We've spoken openly about things that most people can't even begin to speak about, right? So that level of comfort exists. So I know with a certain group of my friends, I can be quite open. But I know with another group of people, I have to be more conservative and more reserved, because I don't have that familiarity with them. So it's a much more professional approach. It's almost like the German language, which has got a formal and informal ways of greeting. You kind of have to take that approach to human beings. Do I have a good, close relationship with them, or should I just treat them as a professional, which is a handshake and a smile and a wave, and that's it? And I think maybe the comedy industry, it felt a lot like family. I'll be honest. When I was doing a lot of comedy, there was this, and I don't know whether it's fake. Some of it felt real. I'll be honest. Some of it felt really like I would see people, and there's a real sense of, these are my friends. These are the people that I hang out with week after week after week. We'd share jokes and things and so on. So they felt like my homies. They felt like my girlfriends to a certain extent. So hugs were cool. There were no problems with that. So again, I think it's one of those things that the industry itself is maybe very different compared to, say, like my professional work, where I was working Media 24 and those kind of things, where it's chalk and cheese. So I think in that sense, maybe the comedy industry needs to feed itself a bit more professionally and stop this pretense friendship thing, because I think a lot of it is pretense. some of it is true. But for the most part, it's kind of like, okay, you're an act, I'm an act, let's go do our thing. We've got a product to sell, let's go do it, have a laugh, and we can share a drink afterwards, but then go our separate ways.
I just quickly
you can make...
sorry,
no,
Sophie.
go.
I just quickly have to say something. We have 5 minutes left with Sophie because she can only stay for an hour. So just letting you guys know. So Sophie, go ahead, continue.
Comedy friends. I've made some great friends who I hug regularly through comedy, just because we talk about our lives and ourselves, and you get to know someone's story more intimately than you do at the office just by watching their act night after night. I think what this conversation has showed me, but also reflecting on other experiences, it's more than often than not someone who's an MC, because it's their gig, they organized it, they have that edge, power dynamic, whatever you want to call it. Feeling attracted to someone, I'm not saying that's you, Joe, I'm just saying in my other experiences, and acting on that attraction because that's like what you do, and then getting rejected, and then being like defensive and rude about it, and then not giving me a gig anymore because I was like, sorry, you're older than my dad, I don't really think that you should be asking me on a date. So I think with the comedy industry, what needs to change is people need to be more aware of that. And when people say, this person blocked me because I didn't hook up with them or whatever, that just needs to be heard more. But all in all, I think points that you made, Verna, on education, and Mikhail, that you made on a lot of like people who don't have the money to have access to psychologists. There are two organizations I'd love to mention for anyone watching, if you ever, or anyone on the show want to donate. Rape Crisis does amazing things with free therapy for anyone who's gone through the most traumatic experiences or is stuck in an abusive relationship. They do free counseling and a lot of workshops. And there's another organization called Fem Projects who do consent workshops in high school with boys and girls. So a lot of this can be all talk, and we can call out our friends and we can be like, yo, bro, that joke was rapey. You shouldn't make that joke, maybe. Freedom of speech, but it sounds like you're a rapist. Calm down. Donating money to people who are already doing the work is a great way to support. So throwing that out there.
And psychedelics. Psychedelics help for trauma.
I just okay, quickly. I do want to clarify. I definitely don't believe that victim equals remaining vulnerable. I don't think that is at any place the case. The sad thing is that the moment that you become a victim, at that moment, someone made you feel vulnerable. Yeah. But being vulnerable, being a victim does not equal automatically you will always be vulnerable. I'm also not at any stage in my life saying that people can't have the opportunity to heal fully, because there are cases, and hopefully with time it will be more and more so. But and I apologize, I should have clarified. At the moment when that act happens, I don't think we can deny that at that moment a part of that person's soul dies. I'm not saying that their soul can never be resuscitated. I'm not saying with love and hard work that it can't be fixed. But we should always at least, yes, victim is not vulnerable, but at that moment they were. Having your soul die at that moment does not mean it will for always and forever be dead. And then with you brought it up, we need to discuss this more about if you approach a person of an opposite sex who you find attractive at a comedy gig, for example, and you make an offer, doesn't matter how sweet it was intended to be, and you get rejected and you get on your high horse. I'm awfully sorry. This specifically now goes to men that do that. Don't be that's the whole point. Don't be a fucking twat. Don't walk into the club all bare-chested and strong. You have binge watched the shit out of Rambo, and now you run to the corner with your tail behind your legs because a chick told you no. Dude, seriously. Don't come to me with your whole man the fuck up, buttercup, and then the moment a girl says, listen, you're not that pretty,
you go whimpering into
you
a
now
corner.
suddenly this fragile piece of porcelain. Look, if you want to act
being
like
rejected hurts. Look, let's call a spade, right? If you fancy someone, right, and like me, look, we've all had like kid-like crushes on people, and does that feeling go away as you get older? I think when you crush on people, you just crush. I mean, I'm 42, and you can still develop crushes on people. You know, it's one of these things, right? So does it sting when you get rejected? Of course, man. You know, it's like a bit of like your wind gets taken out of your sails. But as you know, just move on, China. Just
There's
that's
just
life.
a level of respect, really. I mean, respect what other people like. If someone comes up to you, or if you're rejected by someone, yes, rejection is hard, but you've got to respect their wishes. Like they don't like you, they don't like you, and also that's like. It doesn't mean you guys can't be friends. Doesn't mean you guys can't like get to know one another. Maybe something will develop later. Probably not, but like that does happen as well. I mean, there's just I don't know.
Sometimes perseverance is the answer.
Whoa, be careful when you say that.
No. Reporting. No. I'm not saying stalking. Right? There's a difference between stalking and being a gentleman pursuing a lady in a gentlemanly fashion.
Yeah.
You know, I still believe in like I'm old school. You know, and you like sure. You know, we're in a modern age, but when you woo women properly, you know, they love it. They enjoy it. It's like, you know, there's this not
like going woo woo woo.
Yeah. I was about to say.
no, not catcalling. You know, I mean, look, I think it's different for every person and it's different for every situation. You cannot have like a broad strokes approach to this kind of thing, you know. But what life has taught me in 42, Jimmy, just be yourself, be true to who you are, and what will happen will happen.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's
Guys,
definitely like that. But
I have to bounce, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. I have to get home before curfew, otherwise I'm fucked. But I would like to say thank you. It is always, I am so glad to talk to men about this because, one, it's nice to know what you think. Two, we usually think many of the same things. And three, it gets a bit of an echo chamber when you're just talking to your sisters and it's all like, fuck you guys. So not fuck you guys. Thank you guys. It has been hugely insightful. Talking about very much the dark side of comedy and having awkward conversations, and I appreciate you having me in them. So thanks, Joe, for having me.
No problem. We'll have you back anytime. Just let us know if there's any other topics you want to talk about. Once again, I am terribly sorry for making you feel uncomfortable. I
hear
deeply,
you,
deeply
I
regret
see
it.
you, and I know you didn't mean it, and I appreciate you being so open to having that discussion.
No problem. All right. We'll stay
Not
on.
easy.
We'll stay on, but Sophie, you're welcome to
Thanks so much, Sophie.
Exit.
Cool. I look
so
forward to
much.
watching the rest of your discussion.
Cool. Thank you, Sophie.
Goodbye and
Bye.
good night.
Yes.
cheers.
Alrighty, yes. Unfortunately, Sophie was on a time constraint. Peter did try to join us earlier. He's in the chats. Let me just quickly get to some of the comments. We are going to wrap up now. We wanted Sophie on the show because she's a woman. She's got skin in the game, if I can put it that way. And I think we raised some important points. So let me just get to some of especially the super chats. Thank you all so much for super chats. It's greatly appreciated. I see a few here. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any. No. Okay, so the first super chat that came through, let's just let it load, was, okay, Peter just giving a 50 Rand super chat with no message. But thank you, Peter, for the 50 Rand super chat. He's in the chats and he's watching. And then Queen Wordsmith saying, where do you draw the line between a joke and being a sexual predator or problematic? I'm not sure in reference or what we were talking about when that was given.
Yeah, I think maybe that's that line of consent, right? And I think that is going to be different for every person. one has to acknowledge that every person has their own boundaries that they will negotiate, right? And I think what these events and comedy shows and these kind of things do, right? We kind of believe that it's one set of rules, and we kind of all act like in this fun family kind of approach, which we clearly see is not the truth. That is not the reality. And I think going forward, and this is what maybe a lot of the other promoters and so should take out of this, is that the gig should be run way more professionally, and people should perhaps maybe sign consent forms and say, when photos are taken, you need to specify what you feel comfortable in. There's, but the question is, like, again, how far do you take it? And I think that is maybe what it relates to. And I don't think one can really say specifically that's going to be up to each and every promoter to decide for themselves.
Yeah,
how they want to do that.
Sorry, Mikhail. I think that again, it comes with communication. If there's a joke that makes you feel uncomfortable, say it. Because there are guys that are like that. I've seen them do it. Like, let me touch your whatever. Oh, it's just kidding. Like, no, that's not a joke. And if a girl feels uncomfortable about that, then you need to respect it. Mikhail.
On the one hand, Vanna does have a valid point. There are certain steps we can take to make it a bit more the freedom of movement, so to speak. But once again, I think in this regard, I think also education and the long-term goal comes very much in play. I think once this conversation, and it's been for a long time that either side have been asking this, that once the conversation is more available to the majority of people, the moment more people understand consent and boundaries and situations, I think the need for things like consent forms and stuff will become a lot less, because I think people will have a better mind of, okay, these are my personal boundaries and I'm allowed to voice them. And the person coming in for the hug, for example, needs to be aware, okay, I would love to hug this person, but are they comfortable with it? And at a stage, you'll hopefully come to a point where you will be able to, just by purely reading a room, because a lot of the education has been founded and built upon, where you can read a room and go, okay, but based on this and this and this is the way I should act, and this is the way I shouldn't act. Because if you want to start doing consent forms and all those stuff, yes, you're putting up safety barriers, but you're putting safety barriers up for collisions that still could happen. At the end of the day, you want to stop. We want to have people not make those collisions at all.
Look, I get it. In instance, I think you can't stop those collisions from happening, right? But in the very least, taking, I would say, professionalizing the game a bit more.
No, I'm in agreement with that.
That will definitely, just from legality at least, cover promoters, acts, etc. So that you as a promoter, you ensure that you run a clean ship. And maybe that's, and that's why things like unions and so exist, which they set out standards, which say, if you want to be part of the specific type of union, these are your membership fees, but this is what you will belong, this is what you describe to, these are the tenets, the et cetera, right? But we all know that the comedy industry is by and large incapable of doing this.
Okay, well, that's a whole nother discussion with why we're unable to do that. But I do agree that, yes, maybe that some form of union could set a standard, and I think it is desperately needed because other countries have it. But again, that's a whole nother discussion for another day about a union. I just want to say two things. One, we're not going to go on too much longer. I think I'm just going to give this, Queen Wordsmith has clarified what she meant, so I just want to get to that. And then we'll close after that. But I do want to say as well that Mikhail has suggested to me, and I agree with the suggestion, all the super chats made tonight, I'll make a note of them, and they will go to one of the organizations that Sophie mentioned. I will get in contact with her again and ask her, maybe we'll split the super chats and donate to both those organizations, or maybe she can advise which one she feels would be the one to give. We'll see. So if you guys feel generous, all the super chats tonight will go towards one of these organizations that Sophie has mentioned.
And I'll donate $500 off the bat. I'll say that.
Fantastic. All right, so very quickly, let me just get to what Queen Wordsmith said. Rape jokes are being made under the guise of comedy, which is problematic. Gender-based violence jokes are also problematic. Where do you draw the line? I'm going to give my opinion on that. There is a sort of unspoken ethics code, if I could put it that way, or we discuss it a lot as comedians, like where is the line on certain things? Where do we draw the line on stuff like race? So if you do black accent and all that stuff, we discuss it a lot. And when it comes to rape, there is a general consensus that we try to stay away from that and gender-based violence jokes and all that stuff. I personally, I have done I'll admit, it's not a rape joke in terms of like, I'm talking about someone who raped someone, but it's a play on words, which I've now scrapped because I realized I did it once and I was like, nah, I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't like it. And I definitely didn't make fun of the action, that's for sure. And I think to some level it's also a moral thing, because I would almost say that the guy who is not comfortable, the guy that might actually do the action would actually make fun of it. And I do believe also that some people are not in tune with empathy, with self-reflection, and sometimes comedians will do a rape joke and they just do it because of the shock factor. They're called blue comics, and that's their thing, and they stand by the whole freedom of speech thing and stuff like that. I don't condone it. I've done a comedy workshop where I work with younger people who want to, or younger individuals who want to do stand-up comedy, and I tell them, look, stay away from rape jokes, stay away from all that stuff. It's best you just talk about your personal experiences. So in my opinion, as a comedian, I steer away from it, and I don't agree with any other comedian doing it. However, I can't stop them from doing it. And that's where the whole freedom of speech thing goes. So our line definitely is there. It's just a matter of individuals or individual comedians who just don't listen to the line, and that's problematic.
I'll say this, right. For me, I am happy that as long as the joke doesn't, that the butt of the joke isn't the victim, but arguably the perp. So from my perspective, being molested, and knowing how kids are being molested, for me it's okay to make a joke where the butt of the thing is the predator, or something to that extent, in order to highlight, or to put a light on how bad the problem is, because often comedy is used in order to comment on what's happening in the world, right? But there's ways and means that you can communicate this. I mean, we saw this exactly with this film Cuties, right? Sure, they could say that it's in order to highlight the sexualization of young children, but they do it by sexualizing young children. Now, there are many ways that you can convey that message without, and that is the point. So again, that line really lies is that the punchline of your joke shouldn't hurt the victim anymore, right? It may remind them of something, but if it in some way helps them see that there are other people that are dealing with this and that are getting through it, it may be a form of therapy as well. So we shouldn't put that aside, because laughter is good medicine. So it is a difficult thing to say exactly where that line is, and I think that line really lies at the point who is the butt end of the joke, really.
I basically, Vander has said 60% of what I wanted. I personally avoid rape jokes in my sets. I just do. It doesn't make me a saint. It's just a person. I don't feel comfortable doing humor like that. But then I agree with Vander that if you are a comedian that wants to do a joke like that, as long as your and his words, as long as your punchline doesn't empower the predator, but your punchline could possibly empower the victim, and you can pull it off successfully. There's no 99%. You have to have 100% hit rate. You can't go, it's worked 7 out of 10 times. If you want to do that joke, you need to know that it's 10 out of 10, because just one person that's upset by it is already more than enough. So as long as you empower the victim and not the predator, then rape jokes, apart from that, do have a place, but it's a very, very niche place. I don't have a high opinion of Seinfeld as a comedian, but he has a great series called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. Obviously, I watch it largely for the cars, but he has a great female friend who's a comedian that was raped, and she uses it a lot in her material. And in the show, people came up to her going, but we're very, very upset about this. And she said, it's my of empowering myself and not victimizing myself. I think in cases like that, it's definitely a place to empower yourself. They're 100%, no negotiating. It's therapy. If the person that was transgressed by this, whether it is rape or sexual harassment in the sense of off-the-cuff remark that was unnecessary, if they can use that to empower themselves and possibly empower other people that went through it, that I 100% condone, because in a certain extent they have the right to do so. So, for example, Vanna used, and you should also, well done, and I'm proud of for you what said about being molested. If Vanna does a set where it's his punchline, and it's a way for him empowering himself and to deal with it, then once again, no negotiation. I won't split any hairs, because that person is in a position where they're allowed to do that, because they're not punching down. It's not low-hanging fruit for them. And for the majority of the audience, that's also not low-hanging fruit. But a normal guy or girl that has never experienced it or has never really truly seen the damage what they do by that, if you 100% can't pull off that joke in the sense of empowering the victim, don't do it, because it's low-hanging fruit. And in this case, it's very damaging low-hanging fruit. So don't go for it.
Well, that, I think, will conclude this topic. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you that watched, and once again for your super chats, thank you so much. We, like I said, will be donating it to one of the organizations that Sophie mentioned. And I want to thank Sophie once again for coming on to the show. And I hope people can learn from this. I think this was a very great conversation to have, and it's an example of how we should be talking about this and hopefully creating awareness. So yeah, do you guys have anything else to add?
Vanna, you go first.
Yeah, I just want to say, Joe, kudos for not turning into a puddle of sweat. I mean, if someone, no, I'm serious. I mean, if someone said that kind of stuff on a live, it rattles the person. I mean, especially if you're a what I would consider a sensitive individual, a person that cares about other people's feelings. To have this put to you, to say you did X and it made me feel uncomfortable, is difficult. Especially when it's so. I just to you and Sophie both, you both handled it exceptionally well, and me and Mikhail were arguably just spectators to this, but I could see the both of you kind of held yourselves together quite well, and that's a sign of maturity. So I just wanted to say, kudos.
Thanks.
Yeah, I want to add, once again, hopefully in future, more and more women will do this, and we don't have to go, here's your bravery medal, but it still means, Sophie, if you are watching, you got home in time and you got the last few minutes, once again, thank you for your bravery, and thank you for speaking out.
Participation. Let's just call it participation.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it should really just be a participation in the conversation.
Joe, thank you for being honest and sincere, and Van, your history that you mentioned once again. Also, thank you for being brave and honest and sincere. And the people watching tonight, I want everyone that watches, and most of the people that watch this channel are fans of Joe and fans of Vanner and maybe one or two of me.
They're all here for you, man. Carl, come on, stop it.
But let's be honest. Please don't watch this and leave going, okay, what Sophie said is a reflection of the fact that she's a victim and she was asking for it. Don't leave the show tonight seeing Vanner as an unknowing victim and that's all he is. Don't see Joe because of just a lack of awareness is all of a sudden a sexual predator. Please don't view these people, these three people that appeared tonight, don't view them as the stereotype that we are trying to break. There are cases, they are so much more than that. I from what I've seen, I think Sophie is a lot stronger and a lot fulfilled person than one or two acts. I think Vanner, the same, is a much braver and stronger individual than the acts. I think Joe is a much more sensitive and caring and loving person than an unknowing due to lack of education or being informed or lack of awareness than his act. The three people that you watched tonight that spoke about personal experiences, they are so much more than the deed, and they should continue being seen as so much more than the deed.
Yeah, and that's why this video, I'm not going to shy away from it. This video will remain. I'm not going to take it down. I'm going to actually make a nice little short video of this episode. I feel it's important to get this message out and let this be an example of how we should deal with these kind of things. As I said, if Sophie had told me then, I would have reacted the same way, not probably. And I deeply respect everyone's and anyone's, especially when it comes to women, their space, because I've met a lot of women that are victim to horrible things, and I hate to even think that I did that to someone. So yeah, once again, I do apologize to Sophie. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. So this was tough. This was extremely tough. I mean, this is a sensitive topic all around. Maybe we'll touch on it again in future episodes in a more general space, with outside of the comedy industry. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming onto the show. Peter, I'm sorry you couldn't join us. I know you're in the chats. We're getting more super chats. Thank you guys so much for the super chats. So please, guys, share this far and wide. Communication is key, and respect. Just have respect for each other and be kind to one another, as I always say. So with that being said, I will be back here tomorrow night with a new show with Mikhail and Oberking and Bevan Boyson. We're going to be roasting the headlines. It's a new show, trying out something new. So please come join us for that at 8:30. And yeah, if I don't see you then, stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers! Hey guys, so if you enjoyed the show, please consider giving it a like and a share. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you're new to my channel. And if you really enjoyed the content, feel free to join and become a member. Don't forget about my fight against cancel culture. That's in the link in the description below. Support my fight against cancel culture. Go to that link and all the information is there. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching.